If you have the word AI anywhere in your pitch, and have traction, the valuations are completely absurd. You can't eat the paper returns. A lot of funds being raised, it's really based off of real cash handed back to investors. The venture world, it just takes longer to get to that. And so there's been this whole cycle of funds that got bigger and bigger and bigger without ever really proving that the companies they had invested in had truly got to a realized outcome in the markets.
Well, the economy is showing signs of slowing down, and people are concerned about not only inflation, but losing their jobs to a slower economy, as well as automation and AI. Will we even have jobs in the future? Well, our next guest says that with AI comes new career paths and new ways to leverage automation to make ourselves more productive, more prosperous, and perhaps even use AI to generate six-figure-a-month side hustles. We're going to find out what he means and how. Sahil Bloom joins us today. He is the managing partner of SRB Ventures and the best-selling author of the book, The 5 Types of Wealth. Great book. Check it out. Link down below. So what are these 5 types of wealth and how do we become wealthy? We're going to talk about this with Sahil today. This video is sponsored by Kalshi. It's a fully regulated platform that lets you trade on real-world events from economic data to political outcomes. Sign up and use my code LIN, L-I-N, link in the description down below, or scan the QR code here. New traders who use my code will get $10 deposited to your account when you trade $10. Traders can put money down on their favorite teams, events, elections, and more in all 50 states, including California and Texas, and over 140 countries. Sahil, it's good to see you. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Why are you doing what you do right now? Let's start with that. You were
that's a big question to jump into.
You were a very talented athlete. D1 baseball for Stanford, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong. You are currently all over the place doing media, also venture capital. Tell us about your life in 5 minutes or less and how you transitioned from what you wanted to do when you were younger into now. And then we can talk about the economy.
Yeah, I took, out of college in particular, I basically took the path that is like the straight and narrow path to what we all think of as the successful life. Like I had sort of gotten indoctrinated into this belief that my journey to living a happy, content, or fulfilled life was to make money and accumulate fancy things, like build status, get those pats on the back. I figured that I would just do that enough that I would wake up and feel good about myself. So I took the job out of school that was going to sound good for the LinkedIn post rather than maybe the job that I actually wanted. And I sort of just marched down this path for 7 years to start my career, convincing myself that I was always just one bonus or promotion or title or fancy bottle of wine away from feeling fundamentally different about who I was, feeling like I was enough. And while I was winning in that one very particular domain, I was working in private equity, I was making money. From the outside looking in, you would have said I was winning the game. I started to see basically every other area of my life starting to fall apart. I was drinking 6-7 nights a week. I was 40 pounds heavier than you see me today. I was living 3,000 miles away from the people that I loved most, my parents, sibling. My mental and physical health were in disarray. Like all of these other areas of my life were showing cracks. And so I just started to have this sensation that if that was what winning felt like, I had to be playing the wrong game. And in 2021, I had a single conversation with this old friend that changed the course of my life. I went out for a drink. He asked me how I was doing. I told him that it had started to get difficult living so far away from my parents. And he asked how old they were. And I said mid-60s. He asked how often I saw them. I said about once a year. And he just looked at me and said, okay, so you're going to see your parents 15 more times before they die. And that was the moment that changed everything. Because in that one moment, I realized that my entire definition of what it meant to build a wealthy life had been incomplete. I was focusing on the one thing at the expense of everything else rather than in conjunction with everything else. And so my wife and I took a dramatic action. I quit my job. We sold our house in California. We moved 3,000 miles across the country to live closer to both of our sets of parents. And that was sort of the spark that sent me on the journey to everything that I do today. All of the, ideas I share, the things that I write about, the journey that I'm on, the things that I've built. It's all been sort of a reflection of this idea of let me build my life around the priorities that I truly have. rather than the ones that I'm just being told matter. And that path is one that I've been trying to share because, my sort of purpose is to create ripples on that idea. Like I want other people to think a little bit more deeply about what they want their life to look like.
I want to talk about the 5 types of wealth. It's not all about money, but let's talk about money first. This is a money show after all. How do we make money in 2026? Let me just read to you a few economic indicators, shall we say. GDP growth is stalling, so U.S. real GDP plummeted to 0.7% annualized growth rate in the fourth quarter of 2025. The job market seems to be shrinking. The Federal Reserve, several members, including Jerome Powell and other governors like Waller, for example, have straight up admitted verbally that if you take into account revisions and seasonal adjustments, 2025 added no jobs. The economy actually lost 92,000 jobs in February. Recession odds are spiking, especially after inflation fears from oil coming up in the Iran war. And the University of Michigan Sentiment Index, Consumer Sentiment Index, has been near all-time lows for quite some time. People aren't feeling great about job prospects. They aren't feeling good about promotion prospects. They aren't feeling good about real wage increases. That's wages over inflation. And the concerns about losing jobs to AI, which we'll talk about in more detail today, have been rising as well. So, Sahil, how do we make money in this kind of environment?
There is no shortage of uncertainty in the world right now, as you pointed out with all of those stats. Look, money and how you make money is not some secret. There's no secret behind the recipe. It's, you create value, you receive value in return. You're solving problems, you're scaling the solutions to those problems, and that's how you make money. Whether that's within a company, you're solving problems for your managers, for your bosses, et cetera, for the company. Or if you're an entrepreneur, you're solving other people's problems, you're scaling those solutions, you're making money. I personally believe that we are going to go through a period of significant disruption to the job market. I think that's going to be a combination of a lot of natural pullback of things that got overheated and bloated, and companies that use AI as an excuse and sort of a cover, if you will, to do drawdowns in their employee base. And I personally, I think that less of that is going to be really about that the companies are truly realizing new efficiencies with AI, and it is more about using the AI narrative as cover for what they probably should have done earlier within the corporate world. What I think that means for an individual is there is going to be no better time in history to be high agency and curious and exploring the ability to create income through the skills that you have outside of the context of your normal corporate job and situation. I think it's going to be a bad time over the coming decade for people who lack that agency, who are not willing to kind of push themselves a little bit more and explore those new opportunities that are out there. I think that every day there are more and more people out there who are trying to understand what is happening in the world with AI in particular. I think that if you spend 30 minutes a day, 60 minutes a day, familiarizing yourself with those tools, making yourself as facile as possible with those tools, you will not lack opportunity to go out and make money over the coming decade, whether it's, a business of one consulting and teaching other individuals around those things, or something more scalable than that. All of those opportunities are going to be there for people who are on the early uptake on this kind of wave of technology that is coming, whether or not we like it.
Well, you posted on X, there's an opportunity right now to build a $100K per month side hustle as an AI concierge. You later noted you came up with this idea after having dinner with the CFO of a multi-billion-dollar tech company who was doing exactly that, building AI employees. I was watching a Jensen Huang panel discussion recently, CEO of NVIDIA. He said that actually AI is at a point now where it can run its own billion-dollar startup by itself. So tell us, look, I'm not an AI expert. I'm not going to try to pontificate on what he means, but I'll let Jensen speak for himself. What do you mean by this post? How do we make $100K a month as a side, using AI as side hustles, for example?
I think what you're basically looking at here is there's this massively disruptive new technology. And look, I'm not like a tech guy that believes that the narratives that you're seeing on X are all over the place on how extraordinary these things are is really baked in reality right now. I think that like you get these techno optimists that get so out in front of themselves in terms of the impact that these things are having right now. I think in the future you might see those kind of things, but like realistically, 99% of companies that are using these technologies now are doing like really silly things that aren't actually moving the needle for them if you were to go and actually poll CEOs on the impact AI is having. The point, though, with the opportunity that I flagged is there is this enormous wave of technology that's happening. And it's created this environment of sort of like haves and have-nots, where there's all these people that have no idea what they're supposed to know when it comes to these technologies, but want to, because they feel like they're getting left behind. They feel like their business could be more efficient, or they could be implementing things in a different way, or it would improve their life or streamline, save them time, all these different things. These people have high disposable income, whether through their business or individually, and are willing to spend for someone to just do this for them. Like there is throughout history been an ability to spend on things that abstract away complexity, right? Like the best business models in the world are the ones that just abstract complexity for someone that doesn't care to understand it. I'm a perfect example of that. Like I was talking to this friend, he's the CEO of a, $10 billion or so startup, very well-known startup within the health tech world. And he was telling me all these different things and how he built it and all this stuff. And I'm sitting there as like a non-techie person saying, wow, that would be really transformative for me. But I have absolutely no idea half the words he just said about how he set that up. I would gladly pay someone to just come and do that. And so that was what inspired me posting about that is if you can be the person that has the node of knowledge, and there are people that want that from you, therein lies an opportunity, right? You're going to abstract away all the complexity. You can charge a really premium services-based rate, and you can go and deliver that. It does not take that many clients at $5,000 or $10,000 a month to generate an $100,000 a month business. I'm not just throwing that number out there as like this, wild get clicks type number. I really believe that it is possible to do that. And since I posted that, I've gotten messages from at least 3 people who have now gone and done that and built a scale side hustle with that exact business model.
Many companies are laying employees off because of automation. Jack Dorsey's Block, Salesforce a while ago laid off 4,000 people. Do you think
because of automation or because they or because it's an easy thing to say?
What do you think? That's the reason they're giving.
I think it's an easy thing to say. Look, I don't know Jack Dorsey. I don't know some of these guys, but like if you go look at Block's revenue per employee and how much they scaled their employee base, they were bloated. I saw a Twitter thread that someone wrote, it might have been like Bucko Capital, who's posts really good content, that basically broke down like they had gotten massively inflated during COVID in terms of their employee base. And that was a great time to, use as this transformative moment and this transformative cover to just wipe a lot of that clean. And you can use this narrative of AI and automation. And frankly, what we saw was that the market rewards you for using that narrative. I think there's a world where if you don't use the narrative, it actually, makes you look bad. But if you use the narrative, you're so transformative and you're doing things differently and you're working with these technologies. So they must be doing and creating all this value, right? And that's a bad incentive for a lot of companies to now look at this. But I do think you're going to see more of it because, look, I think the truth is that a lot of the knowledge economy did get over bloated. I mean, like anyone that has worked at a large company, like anyone in any sector of the economy has experienced this thing, right? You go to a meeting, there's like 20 people at this meeting. You can't figure out what 10 of the people do. You look around, they have senior titles, they sound impressive, they're probably making several $100,000 a year, and you can't figure out what they do. And the whole economy has been built up on the back of that, right? Like colleges were able to charge as much money as they did, convince you to take on as much debt as you did, because there was this like knowledge economy put, if you will, in the background that said you had a job that was going to pay you several $100,000 a year, whether or not you were creating a whole ton of value within that organization. And so I think that, you can see like a restructuring of some of the way we thought about knowledge economy work in the short term. The long term, though, I am a big believer in the fact that like if this technology comes, if it makes production more efficient, there will be a demand side benefit in the long run, that there will be more demand for these goods and services. It will create new types of jobs that we can't possibly envision right now. I think that has always happened throughout history. And I'm not a big believer in ever saying this time is different.
Well, let's take a look. I'm going to show you a clip of the Anthropic CEO making a warning about what's going to happen with the job market. I think you've seen this before. This is from Kalshi. It's a prediction market. Which AI company will have the best coding model at the end of 2026? As you can see, Anthropic is at the top, according to Traders Science. They have a whole section on this. What will be the top AI model this year? It's going to be Claude Opus 4.6 thinking. So it looks like Claude is leading the charge. There's also a market on which company will IPO first, OpenAI, Anthropic. How do we use something like a reasoning model like Claude in our everyday life? For content creators, I use it for research, helping me with scripts, helping me with ideas. Somebody else, give us an example how AI helps you.
Yeah, so first off, I am an investor in Kalshi. Just full disclosure, I think. Look, I think there's basically infinite possibilities for how to think about using, these models in your life. I would encourage people to spend a day or even a week, basically mapping out like everything you do, sort of moment by moment over the course of a day, and make an attempt to automate the things that you don't like doing through one of these models. And what I have found really beneficial is to just say like, oh no, that doesn't seem like that would be possible, but then just try and see what happens and see if you can improve the thing. Because often what I have found is that the actual holdup is like, I don't want to spend the few hours teaching the model to get better at this thing. I just keep doing it myself. And the truth is that after like a week or two, the time differential would have flipped and it would have been better for me to just do this thing. And so like an example of that for me was, like continuing to book my own travel for my different speaking things that I do. I was like doing it all on my own, looking up the flights, going and making the bookings, etc. And I ended up just training this AI agent because I was like, oh, this might be an interesting thing for me to do. And I had to go create a credit card for it. And I had to go give it all of my flight account details and all of these different things. But now if I say like, hey, book me a flight like from this window to this window, nonstop, Boston to New York, whatever it might be, it can actually just go and do that. And I get back, 20 minutes of my time, probably every single time this happens. So I really believe there's like probably 10 things in anyone's life today that either in your professional life or your personal life, you can pretty quickly streamline and just start to make yourself a little bit more aware of the potential of some of these technologies, make yourself more facile with them, and unlock yourself to try to operate on a higher order of significance in terms of the work that you're doing.
Okay. This is from a Forbes article published a while ago, earlier this year. According to consulting firm Mercer, 40% of employees now fear losing their jobs to AI, up from 28% in 2024. The Anthropic CEO was on media and panels a lot over the course of last year, warning about mass unemployment. He's even gone as far to say earlier this year about which types of jobs will likely survive. He said, we're living in an economy, and I'm paraphrasing here, we're living in a time, an economy, where a lot of the white-collar office jobs are getting wiped out. And so to stay ahead, you basically have to think like an artist. How do we prompt AI to create stuff for us? Because if you're at the opposite end as a consumer and your job doesn't add value as a creator, you're probably going to lose your job. That's his view. I want to get yours. How do we, and that's my question to you, how do we, as citizens of this AI world, add value to society when so much of my job can be automated? How do we build wealth? Going back to your book, 5 Types of Wealth.
Well, first off, I love this guy because he has been on a lot of panels saying all these things. And to me, it's always like, a guy warning you about a fire and like telling you should really look into the fire while he's holding a flamethrower, standing there. So the irony of it, I just can't get over. Look, I agree in concept that understanding how to use these technologies, trying to push yourself to be on what is frankly right now like a tiny percentage of the world who is even using the paid, the stats on the percentage of people that are using the paid tier, even the lowest paid tier on some of these models is very, very low. So if you're listening to this and all you do is you set up one of these things and start working with it for a few minutes a day, you are one of the early ones in adopting these technologies. You are going to be able to do a little bit more than other people who are in your same position, and hopefully a little bit better, a little bit more, a little bit faster, all of these things. That is how you're ultimately going to create more value, right? And to go back to what I said at the outset, create more value, then you'll receive more value in return. The other piece of the wealth equation that no one really wants to talk about is no one is forcing you to make lifestyle inflating decisions. Like I often talk about the best path to wealth being avoiding unforced errors. Like I see and have seen so many people that make a ton of money be like one bad break away from losing everything because they've allowed their lifestyle to scale right in line with their income. And that is avoidable. No one's forcing you to go on that ultra fancy vacation or to like build that pool at your house or take on that like much larger mortgage to, go get that like way fancier apartment. No one's forcing you to do any of these things. You get to make your own decisions. And so if you feel like you're in a position where it's not totally certain that your employment is going to be really stable and you may be needing to do something where you take on, a new side hustle or where you start your own entrepreneurial venture, which inherently is going to be a little bit choppier at first, you probably shouldn't go and take on those big new lifestyle expenses that you might have if you felt like everything was going up and to the right and really stable. I think it was my friend Josh Wolf that said, the real failure is the failure to imagine failure. And I think that just contemplating, like doing a little bit more pre-mortem analysis on your own financial situation, to me, that is really the way that you protect your downside, which allows you to then more creatively go after upside opportunities that come along.
Well, Sahil, let's talk about your venture capital arm. So what kind of companies do you like right now?
I've invested in probably about 100 companies over the last 5-7 years. I am fascinated by companies that are applying AI to sort of broken industries. One of the better investments I've made over the last several years is in a company that is, building within the healthcare space, and really leveraging AI to help patients better navigate what is a extremely challenging healthcare landscape to understand or navigate. Like if you're a patient going in with, you get diagnosed with cancer and you're like going to have to go through hundreds of appointments and different specialists and all these different things. Having someone, a co-pilot along for the ride with you that can actually help you navigate all of that, all the complexities of insurance, of payers, of all these specialist appointments, that has never really existed in the past, this like medical advocacy. And so companies that are learning to take and apply AI in unique, creative ways to help these like kind of broken industries operate more efficiently, I'm really fascinated by. That company is called Solace. It recently became a unicorn. I had invested in the pre-seed. Amazing business, and sort of like a very logical use of AI to an industry that really needs these kind of disruptions.
The trend of tech venture capital, how has it changed in the last 10 years? You think the focuses and priorities and maybe the way people valued companies, have you seen a shift at all?
Yeah, I mean, it is a crazy market right now. If you have the word AI anywhere in your pitch, like and have traction, the valuations are completely absurd. I think you've seen a real consolidation in the way that LPs, the sovereign wealth funds and pension funds, et cetera, think about deploying their capital into a smaller number of funds that seem to really have access to the more power law outcomes on the other side of it. I think you've seen sort of a washout of some of the smaller or more emerging funds. Venture as an asset class is a really challenging one because of how long it takes to realize real cash returns. You cannot eat paper returns, right? Like everyone wants to show you their markups. And even, I'm talking about that business Solace, right? Like I invested in the pre-seed. It's now worth $1 billion, right? On paper, that sounds fantastic. I can't eat what's on paper, right? Like that doesn't feed your family in any way. And the truth about venture is that all of these incredible performing funds, it doesn't matter if your actual distributed cash back in the hands of your investors isn't high. You can't eat the paper returns. And so it's one thing that I think private equity has done much better from a business standpoint is like a lot of funds being raised. It's really based off of real cash handed back to investors. The venture world, it just takes longer to get to that. And so there's been this whole cycle of funds that got bigger and bigger and bigger, people that raised more and more money without ever really proving that the companies they had invested in had truly got to a realized outcome in the markets. The venture world also is just facing the regulatory landscape around companies going public or getting acquired was quite bad for a long time under prior administrations. And so, you saw deals getting blocked. It was challenging to get acquired. And so the only real outcome for these companies was to go public. And public markets are, as we've seen, like really challenging to go public in. Like you see it with the Figma IPO. Like they go public at this extraordinary valuation, and they've gotten hammered over the last 6 months. So now you're an employee, you've been locked up for 6 months. Now all of a sudden you can sell your stock, but it's down 80% from where it was when you went public because of the software shakeout with Claude and all the things that are coming.
How do you feel about robotics companies, the hardware side of the AI component?
I'm an investor in a company called Figure, which is one of the kind of 2 or 3 main humanoid robot companies. Brett Adcock was the founder of that. And they seem to be building transformative technology. I mean, their robot was just at the White House. It was like the first humanoid robot at the White House. I personally think it is impossible to know how people are truly going to react to having these things distributed in their homes at scale. I can see the manufacturing use cases very easily. I don't know that you need a humanoid form in order to use those in a manufacturing context, but I think the home use case, I will be fascinated to see how many people kind of uptake over the next decade these humanoid forms within their households, because I think there's going to be a subset of the population that is fearful about it.
Okay, finally, let's close off on the 5 types of wealth. Again, New York Times bestseller. I encourage people to check it out, link down below. Let me just sum it up and correct me if I'm wrong. 5 types of wealth. There's time wealth, social wealth, mental wealth, physical wealth, and then finally financial wealth, which we spent the majority of time talking about, which is ultimately money is the thing that people think about when they think about wealth, not the other 4 things you listed. But it's important that you've done. Let me just give you a personal anecdote. I went to McGill for finance. Most of my classmates ended up working on either Wall Street or Bay Street as investment bankers or on the buy side. For the exception of maybe 1 or 2, every single one of them quit after a few years. They succeeded, they got good grades, they got their dream job, and then they said, enough, we're going to do something else. One, I think, is on a spiritual journey somewhere in Bali, finding himself. Anyway, the point is, they decided that financial wealth at a financial institution wasn't what they wanted to pursue for the rest of their life. I'm not going to speak for them, but why do you think they made that decision?
I think that the realization many of us come to, some of us too late, is that money is a tool, but not the goal. And most of these career tracks that you find yourself on within the world of finance convince you that money is the goal. And so what happens is you start making it, and the only goal becomes to make more and more and more of it. And you lose sight of the fact that really the best use of money is when you use it to build these other types of wealth. It can help you buy your time. It can help you create experiences with people you love, build your purpose and find that freedom and purpose, create investments in your health. It can be used for all of those things, but not if you're so blindly chasing it as the end goal.
If you had to add a 6th wealth in 2026, would you? And what would it be?
I think spiritual wealth is the one that people often ask about. It's in the book, it's woven into social wealth and mental wealth, but I think you could carve that out as its own type of wealth. For your friend that's on his spiritual journey in Bali, I think you would probably like it.
Okay. All right. Let's close off the conversation, Sahil. What are you working on now, and where can we follow you?
Working on a handful of things. Working on a second book. Recently launched my most recent company called Wild Roman. It's 100% natural men's skincare business, and you can find me at Sahil Bloom on any of the major platforms.
All right. Thanks so much, Sahil. We'll link down below. We'll link to your social media platforms down below, so make sure to follow him there. Appreciate your time. Thank you, and we'll see you again soon.
Thank you.
And thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe and use my code LIN when you sign up to Kalshi. New users who use my code will get $10 deposited to your account when you trade $10. That's LIN, L-I-N. Link down below or scan the QR code here.